Alright, so many of you are already familiar with cartoons inspired by anime, but what I'm really sick and tired of is people talking about modern cartoons that's inspired by anime. When I say modern cartoons, I mean cartoons like Steven Universe, Teen Titans, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Okay, those are the main ones that people say that they are inspired by anime, which is true. Boondocks as well. Okay, so those are the main ones that people are familiar with when they talk about cartoons inspired by anime. But this isn't a new thing. They've been doing this since the 80s. Now, since I'm a person who like animation, of course I'm going to know this, right? So this dates back to the 80s. A lot of 80s kids grew up watching Robotech, Voltron, Thundercats, Inspector Gadget, the real Ghostbusters, you know. And they grew up watching Hanna-Barbera cartoons as well. Okay, so this isn't like, when it comes to anime inspiring cartoons, I mean, like, people think that modern cartoons really pushed it mainstream. Well, really pushed it in public eye, right? And, well, yeah, it's apparent that these cartoons are influenced by anime, but they weren't like the first people to do it, like I said before. And y'all know that these shows, these modern shows, weren't the first people to do it, but it's apparent in modern cartoons because they have like this emphasis on the style that they're trying to imitate. They have emphasis on the anime styles that they trying to imitate, you know, that they visually are inspired by. But back in the 80s, they disguised the anime style so well, but you can still see it now. Some Dink cartoons were animated overseas. Okay, so here is some interesting stuff that you didn't know about Dink cartoons. Okay, so most Dink cartoons were animated by Japanese artists, like from overseas. Like TMS animated some Dink cartoons, such as Inspector Gadget, The Real Ghostbusters, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, G.I. Joe. I knew this because, like, a while back, I remember watching behind the scenes of Real Ghostbusters, and they showed that they showed a process of how the show was animated. They said that it was sent overseas.
Love to be doing it myself. Back to the story. Once the dialogue has been recorded, edited and timed, the sound tapes, storyboards, backgrounds and character designs are sent out to animation studios in Japan. At the start of each filming session, the director, Will Mineo, flies from Los Angeles to Tokyo to discuss the style and the organisation of the series with the Japanese team responsible for making and shooting the animation cells.
Right? Also, the Thundercats intro is animated by Japanese artists as well. And if you go inside of a YouTube comment section of the Thundercats intro, a fan would state that it's animated by Japanese artists. Also, I like to add that people always say, when is America, or when is American anime gonna come out, right? Or did they ever make an American anime or something like that? It was a question a while back that I seen on Quora when they said something about American anime or something like that. It was, I can't really remember, but when is American anime gonna come out, right? So back in the 80s, they had this show called Galaxy High. It was a collaboration with America and Japan. So it was Japanese and American, and it was like considered a cartoon over here, and I guess it would be considered anime overseas. But you could tell that the show was animated by Japanese artists. It was animated overseas by how the characters is drawn. You know, they look American, but the style, you can tell that it was animated by Japanese artists. So they've been doing this since the 80s, and I don't know why people act like it's just like a new thing that they just now doing. Like, they have been making a lot of anime inspired cartoons lately, like My Adventures with Superman, She-Ra. I didn't like how that one looked though. But there has been many more shows that was inspired by anime, that you can tell. But the style, it is anime inspired, but it's Western looking, but it's anime inspired. But I don't really understand why the 80s anime inspired cartoons don't get a lot of like recognition. I'm just getting sick and tired of people just bringing up Steven Universe as an example. That's not the only show that was inspired by anime. They've been doing it for years, people. So I also like to add that Speed Buggy, right? It was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and it was inspired by Speed Racer. But you can tell that it was inspired by Speed Racer, you know, because I guess they did have things like visually you can tell. I really haven't watched the show that much, but you know, they did want to do something different with, like, each time Hanna-Barbera make a show, it's like an experiment, and they just want to like test stuff. And maybe they notice that other stuff is getting more attention, so they just like get inspired and make a series based on it. But yeah, that was inspired by Speed Racer too. And most 80s kids grew up watching shows like I said before, Voltron, Robotech, and they don't really know that half of this stuff is like anime, you know, considered anime. They're cartoons. Some of them don't know that their cartoons was anime inspired. But you can look and tell, you know. Nowadays you can look and tell. But these were just Saturday morning cartoons, so they automatically thought that, you know, that was regular cartoons. And if you were a kid, you would probably just think they were just regular cartoons, like every other person. But as you get older, yeah, it is apparent that Japanese animators played a part in making these Saturday morning cartoons for these 80s kids back in the day, and like they did a great job. So in a way, we've been working together. We got influenced by them, they got influenced by us, you know. And I just want people to know and recognize even 80s had their time. I mean, even 80s cartoons had their era where they made shows that look like anime, you know, without people noticing. They didn't do it for the audience. They didn't do it for money. Well, they probably did do it for money. Maybe it was easier to have people animate the series overseas and stuff. I think they were both American and Japanese animating these series, you know, but they didn't do it like how they do it now, just to, you know, get people's attention and make them want to watch the show by emulating the anime style. They just made the series, and they made the show as long as they could while it was popular, you know. But yeah, it was apparent. So it wasn't just our generation getting these shows that are inspired by anime. 80s kids got it too, but they probably didn't even notice at the time. But yeah, if they go back and look at it, yeah, it looks like Japanese anime. So some shows that were inspired by anime is Thundercats, Inspector Gadget, The Real Ghostbusters, The G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, Transformers, Voltron, Robotech. I never heard of this one. Saber Rider and the Starships. I've never heard of this stuff. And they're animated by Japanese studios. Yeah, that is just... It's fascinating to learn about this stuff years later. There were even shows based on video games back in the 80s by Japanese, like they were based on Japanese video game titles. Like you have Captain N and the Game Master, then you had Sonic the Hedgehog, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, and then you had the other series, as I mentioned before, Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, Super Mario World, I believe, and Super Mario Brothers. The Super Mario Brothers Super Show, I mean, yeah, that one. Then you had the Legend of Zelda cartoon. So, yeah, this was years in the making. So, people, or if you're a 2000 kid, it really don't matter, like, what age you are. Just, like, take the time and probably go watch some 80s cartoons. These 80s cartoons has aged well. They have beautiful art. The character designs are nice. Some of them, like sometimes when you watch these series, is I'm not gonna lie, they do have weird. They have like sometimes they are weirdly drawn. Things can be weirdly drawn in these 80s cartoons, and some of them do have like these every cartoon has weird episodes, right? But yeah, take the time to go back and look at these 80s cartoons and see how much anime influence that you can see while watching these series. Oh, I forgot to mention, like, shows like Filmation. I forgot to mention Filmation shows. Like, She-Ra was inspired by the magical girl genre, I believe. And I think He-Man was inspired by anime, too. Okay, so it just says it takes, like, the transformation. Yeah. From anime. I don't think Filmation cartoons are really inspired by anime that much. Not very inspired by anime, like the look and stuff and the overall way that is made. I think Filmation is mostly American styled cartoon. It did take some anime aspects like the transformation and stuff from an anime genre, but this is mostly American. Even their animation is made in America, mostly made by American artists and stuff. It's mostly inspired by the way America is used to telling stories in cartoons. So yeah, very much so. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so that wraps up all the cartoons inspired by anime in the 80s. Okay, so let me know what you guys think about this video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time in the next video.